Hello and welcome back to the Academy of the Magical Art. I am Frater Ophio, and due to a couple of different requests asking me to make a video on altered states of consciousness and trance, that is going to be the subject of the day. Altered states of consciousness and trance are extraordinarily important to a magician's magical practice. Understanding the subconscious and the conscious mind is something that I believe should be taught to every walking human on the face of the planet, because it has such an impact on our everyday lives. The subconscious mind is that which influences and causes to manifest everything in our lives. So, to get into it, let's look at the mind. Let's look at the brain. The average computer holds thousands of songs, thousands of videos, thousands of pictures, and performs a couple thousand processes at one time that we don't even realize it's doing, like it isn't a problem. The mind can perform up to 10 quadrillion functions at one time, completely subconsciously. This ranges from our breath, our blood flow, the pressure of blood that's moving through our veins, our internal core temperature, how we process and take in information, every sound, every color, everything that is happening in our external environment is being processed through one of our five senses at any given time and being computed through the supercomputer that is our brain. You will oftentimes hear people say, well, our brains are like computers. That's actually backwards. Computers are like our brains. Computers are ever increasing in their capacity to perform functions because we are continually better understanding the brain. The better we understand the brain, the better you can make a computer. Our mind has one limitation, and that is our subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between imagination and reality. Again, I say that. The subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between imagination and reality. If you think about it, what happens when you have a nightmare? What happens when you're sleeping and you're running from something or whatever? That's not actual reality. That's our subconscious mind processing. But when we wake up, our peripheral nervous system is going off. We are getting a adrenaline dump. Our heart is racing fast, possibly sweaty and clammy. Our breathing is heightened, all in reaction to something that was going on in the subconscious mind. Another example, what happens when you're in your car by yourself and you're driving to somebody's house that you know that you might have confrontation with? Same thing happens. Your heart starts to race fast, you start to get a little bit of an adrenaline dump, your emotions start to fire, you start to get a little bit irritated, playing out the scenario that hasn't even happened yet. What really happens when we're doing that? Cortisol is being released in our blood, the stress hormone. Our body is naturally reacting to a stress that it isn't even experiencing in any place other than within the mind. Now, this can also have a profound effect in the other way. What happens when you close your eyes and you start thinking about a good experience that you had, or a good memory, or an intimate experience? Your body starts to react to those visions that we're seeing in our subconscious mind appropriately. Now, considering that, how much of a profound effect can you have on your everyday life just by focusing on what you're thinking about? Just by focusing on what you are allowing into your subconscious mind and the wheel that is going off, playing out different scenarios. You can control those. You can hit the accept or reject button in your brain and say, no, I don't want to think about this. No, I don't want to play this out in my head. No, I don't need this cortisol released in my blood. Or, yes, I really am enjoying this thought. And yes, this is making me feel good. Because when you feel good, your external environment starts to react to that. So, taking it a step further, we have the law of attraction. Our energetic body also responds, just like our physical body, to what is going on in our brain. It puts off a signal. It's like a beacon. So when you are thinking about negative things and your body is starting to react to those situations, whatever you're playing out in your mind, your energetic body starts to put off that vibration. Well, like attracting like, putting off that vibration is going to do what? It is going to attract that negativity to you. It is going to bring to you exactly what you're becoming upset about and wanting to avoid. Or vice versa. If you are thinking about something happy, something positive, something enlightening, or some love, or whatever, happiness. If you are thinking about being wealthy and imagining yourself having money in your pockets, well, guess what? You're going to begin to attract those things to you, because your subconscious mind only knows how to make your external environment fit the paradigm that it is living in. It knows how to react to what you are telling it to do and draw things into your life accordingly. Think about the placebo effect, for instance. Think about how powerful of a role, just in your internal compass of control, your physical body, how powerful of a role your subconscious mind has just by thinking that it's better. You have placebo and you have nocebo. So with the placebo effect, you have the most common example would be people taking sugar pills and watching their ailments go away right before their eyes simply because they're being treated for something. Extraordinarily effective. They've even taken this a step further with surgeries. They've had people that needed knee surgeries or knee replacements or whatever, gotten consent from the family, put the person under, put 3 small slits in their knee as if they got surgery performed, woke them up, told them that the surgery was done. A couple weeks later, their knee is perfectly healed. Guess what? No surgery. Placebo is extraordinarily powerful. If your brain thinks that it is being healed, if it thinks that it is having whatever procedure or medication you think it is required to heal whatever ailment you are presently carrying, that ailment then goes away. Same thing with nocebo. You hear people who are quote-unquote hypochondriacs. They think that there's something wrong with them. Their subconscious mind is reacting in a way that they are in dysfunction. They are in distress. They are sick. They are not feeling good. So it perpetuates that state of not feeling good. And then you look at a person and you say, well, you're a hypochondriac. There's nothing wrong with you. You can't tell somebody what their paradigm is. If their subconscious mind is telling them that there is something wrong with them, if their conscious mind is telling their subconscious mind that there is something wrong with them, they are going to manifest ailment. Whether or not a doctor or a test can trace it or not, it is happening, and it is just as real to them as the chair you are sitting on is to you. And we have no place telling somebody that that does not exist. What we can do is explain to them the power of placebo and explain to them the power of nocebo and how they can simply change their reactive environment by their thought. Belief is an extraordinarily powerful thing. Belief controls every aspect of your paradigm. You have your set of conscious beliefs, what you know to be true and what you tell yourself to be true on a conscious level. You have your subconscious beliefs, that which you are programmed to believe from a child. And those two things work together to make this bubble called a paradigm. We've discussed this in previous videos, and I've referred you to some of Bob Proctor's work and things like that, explaining how the paradigm works. I really want to strongly encourage you to do some more research on the paradigm, the subconscious beliefs and the conscious beliefs, and how powerful they are to your everyday walking environment. For the sake of time, I'm not going to really get into all of those nitty-gritty details, just give you the sources to go look it up for yourself. At any rate, you can consciously tell yourself that you believe something. You can tell yourself that this is what I want to see happen, this is what I believe. But if it clashes with your subconscious beliefs, if it clashes with what you truly believe because you were programmed that way, it's not going to do a lick of good. The only way to get those things to line up is through hypnosis and trance, going into the subconscious mind, bridging that gap, and addressing it on that level. NLP, neurolinguistic programming, working with somebody on a subconscious level in a conscious state through the use of language or through repetition and affirmation. You hear people say, well, say this 9,000 times a day. Listen to it in your sleep, say it over and over and over again, and eventually it will integrate. That is true. You are convincing your subconscious belief set to let go of one belief through consciously reaffirming that this is what you truly believe. When that begins to happen, people's lives begin to change. There are countless stories, countless accounts of people's lives completely turning upside down and reversing simply because of what they tell themselves, simply because of the power of affirmation, or changing their paradigm through hypnosis or NLP, and going from living out of the trunk of their car to being multimillionaires. just as one example. Go from living with anxiety and depression and insomnia and not being able to sleep and not having peace to gaining all of those things that they lost, and addressing the things causing the insomnia and the depression and the anxiety, and watching it go away simply because they're changing their belief set, they're changing their paradigm, and they're taking control of their brain. You know, people are very, very reactive. A large portion of the population completely lives off of reaction to external stimulus. They do not think about it. They do not think about how they are reacting. They do not think about what they're saying. They do not think about what they are projecting in response to an external stimulus is going to do to their paradigm and their immediate environment. They just react. That is because of a lack of control. As an example, your spouse says something to you, it hurts your feelings, you get mad, you begin to scream and shout and cuss, and then you stay mad for the next 3 days because they said something. Now, realistically, is that anger that you're holding on to hurting them, or is it hurting you? Was it necessary to scream and shout and cuss at them to make yourself feel better, or did that actually do more damage to you than it did to them? That there are multiple reactions that people have to multiple different stimuli, and when we learn to take control over our reactions and not be so reactive to the stimulus of our environment, we begin to seize much more control over the paradigm that we are living in. We begin to be the driving force behind the computer rather than letting the computer be the driving force behind us. This is where the change starts to happen, is by understanding our behaviors and understanding our reactions and understanding what we're processing and change them accordingly. This is how you shape your reality. This is how you begin to change your life and change your world and change that which you do not like about yourself and the environment around you. It's part of the purification process. You know, realistically, when it comes down to it, at a certain point, you have to fake it until you make it. Integrating and changing the subconscious mind and integrating and changing our reactions to our stimuli, it takes time. And although it might not be something that you are presently sitting at in this very moment, if you begin to go through those steps, and like I said, fake it until you make it, walk in those shoes, consciously in your imagination, and you will begin to walk in the shoes in your actual physical paradigm. You know, it really boils down to actions are louder than words. When we say, you know, I have an understanding, or I am enlightened, or I live off of light and love, and those actions don't line up with what we are saying, there is a perfect example in a clash in paradigm, a clash in the subconscious and the conscious belief sets. Because although you're consciously saying one thing, your actions are doing something completely opposite, and that is a clash. That is showing that those two paradigms are not integrated and working harmoniously together with each other. We have free will. We have the ability to choose every step that we take, every word that comes out of our mouth, every action that we do. And people say that they know that, but in reality, this is an actual statistic. Only 2 to 4% of the decisions that you make are actually by your choice. 96 to 98% are reactions. They are completely subconsciously driven. Your likes, your dislikes, how you react to something that somebody said to you. It's just automatic. It's a response. So in understanding that, statistic, we want to see that small percentage of choice to go up. You know, if you can take that 2 to 4% of choice up to 8 to 10%, you have just seized that much more control of your paradigm. You know, people oftentimes are habit driven. They wake up, they go through a cycle, they do this, they do that. I don't care if it's taking a shower, pouring a cup of coffee, going to the front porch, smoking a cigarette, putting a suit on, getting in your car, turning on the radio, going to work, performing your functions, going home, getting a cup of coffee, sitting down, reading the newspaper. It's just reaction. It's habit. It's what, to a degree, you have trained yourself to do in order to be able to cope with your environment. So this is when we want to start to understand our environment, to understand what we are in, understand the stimulus being presented to us, and then control the reaction that we take. placing conscious thought before everything rather than just reacting. How is this going to affect me? How is this going to affect what's around me? That is the point when we really, really start to wake up and be aware. When you wake up and be aware of everything that you do, you will begin to have much more power over your environment, and you will begin to have much more control over your life. You will begin to feel much more in control of your life. And when you feel in control of your life, naturally you become in control of your life. Keep in mind that whatever is held predominantly in the subconscious mind, whatever is held predominantly in our subconscious belief set, is what we are going to be attracted to and what is going to be attracted to us. So by understanding the subconscious beliefs, what we truly believe, and addressing things on that level, we then begin to control what is predominantly drawn to us and the actions that we predominantly take. We begin to control the intake of the subliminal messaging coming into our mind, and we begin to control the response to the subliminal messaging. Going back to the video on sigils, our subconscious mind is constantly bombarded with this command and that command, from radio signals, corporate logos, frequencies that are being played over the television and the radio that our physical ears are not picking up, but they are still being processed by our brain. We are being issued commands on a daily basis, hundreds, maybe even thousands of times a day. Driving down the road in your car, looking at the billboard, bam, there's a command. Listening to the radio and hearing an ad for this company or that company, you were just issued a command. So when it comes down to it, understanding that you are being commanded to do things and you are reacting to them without even really realizing it. However, understanding that it's there, blocking it out and doing what's necessary to override those commands so you remain in control, that is the key. Because, as I said, a large part of our population and their reality and their paradigm is completely being shaped by what their parents told them when they were children, what their teachers told them while they were growing up, what they watched on the television, what they heard on the radio. It shapes our paradigm. When I was younger, when I was a kid, the most violence that I would see on the television was Sonic the Hedgehog crashing into a bad guy, or Mario and Luigi jumping over a turtle. You know, these very, very basic animations that are non-violent and they're just meant to stimulate the brain. Now, in today's day, the average child by the age of 8 years old has witnessed over 10,000 murders on television or video games, either graphically cartoonized or in actual television because they're not being monitored anymore. How many 5-year-olds do you see walking around with iPads and cell phones? It's not necessary. I didn't even have a cell phone until I was almost 20 years old. It's just not necessary, but these are what our next generation is being shaped to function off of. This is how they are being programmed. This is how they are getting prepared to be controlled and influenced by whatever you want to call them, the ruling powers that are causing all this stuff to happen. Programming the sheeple. So, I'm going to cut this video here and I'm going to make a part 2. We're going to discuss in part 2 how to begin to bridge the gap between the conscious and the subconscious mind. We'll discuss a little bit on how we can really start to take control and reprogram those parts of our brain so that we can seize control of our life. I want to thank you again for joining with me today at the Academy of the Magical Art. Until next time, blessed be.